On today's Strictly Vikings, we're going to discuss the Sam Darnold situation. A lot of rumors flying around right now, and we're going to go through them all. We're going to take a look at another league. There's no football, no college football, no NFL, none of it. So we're going to take a league that I usually don't look at, and we'll see how it's going. It's going to be a quick little segment. We're going to go through the complete offseason plan for the Vikings and what I think they should do regarding everything they need to go through this season. We're going to do stay or go with the Vikings free agent, Daniel Jones to be exact. We're going to look at our free agent player and NFL draft player, the fifth one we've done. And of course, we'll end it off with our Chat CPT player of the day. Let's get into it. Today is Wednesday, February 19th, and the word just might be out on Sam Darnold. ESPN reported yesterday. They sent out a notification to everyone's phones if they have those alerts on for the Vikings team, just staying up with news, all of that. There was an alert issued that the Vikings are most likely moving on from quarterback Sam Darnold. And the real rumors that have been heating up over the last week, I would say, is Sam Darnold to the Raiders. And now to me, this makes complete sense. They've been needing a quarterback for years with, ever since they got rid of Derek Carr. Even when they had Derek Carr, they needed a better option. But, since they got rid of Derek Carr, it's been Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ridder, Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy G, just a bunch of just misfit toys in Las Vegas, and they need some consistency at the position. And with the signing or the hiring of Pete Carroll, I think Sam Darnold would be a great option for them. You've seen his upside. You've seen what he can do with good coaching, and Pete Carroll is a great coach. Not that he's going to be calling the plays or anything, but the fact that they can get a winning culture established in Las Vegas, which I think the hiring of Pete Carroll, I think that's what it did, is for the next 2 to 3 years, establish a culture that you hadn't had there before and set it up for the next guy to take over with that culture in place. Because I don't think Pete Carroll is going to be there, 4 to 5, 6 years. I think it's going to be a 1 to 3 year thing with Pete Carroll. And I think you can run that same time slot with Sam Darnold at the helm. So I think that's a great fit, and we'll get into it here in a little bit with my complete offseason plan for the Vikings. But I just see no way Sam Darnold comes back to Minnesota. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, I made a video about it yesterday. There's just no way that the Vikings can commit $40 million to Sam Darnold when they have so many other holes to fill on this roster. So I just have no confidence in Sam Darnold returning to the Minnesota Vikings. Some contracts hit the books this week, hit the 2025 books for this upcoming season because there was no extension. Byron Murphy with a $4.2 million hit, Darnold with a $5 million hit, and Gilmore with a $2.3 million hit. The Vikings can still re-sign these players, but because they didn't reach an extension by, I believe it was yesterday or Monday, these guarantees started on or became official on the 2025 books. Nothing huge there. It was reported J.J. McCarthy is ahead of schedule and will be ready for OTAs in the spring. He's also been at the facility every day working on his way to get back to full strength. Great stuff here. This is what you want to hear. And I think the only possibility of Sam Darnold returning to the Vikings was if there was a major collapse in McCarthy's recovery. As long as McCarthy stays healthy and he continues to work his way back from that meniscus injury that held him out of the 2024 season, I believe he will be the Vikings starter heading into week 1. And I know the Vikings will and probably should sign a veteran, and whether it's Daniel Jones or not, they'll probably sign a competent backup just in case things happen with J.J. McCarthy and a quote-unquote rookie quarterback heading into his first season as a starter coming off a significant injury like that. So I believe The Vikings will run with McCarthy, and hearing that he's ahead of schedule and he'll be ready for OTAs in the spring is great news, and that's just about all you can ask for if you're a Vikings fan or you're inside the building. Myles Garrett, he's been on the trade block for a while now. Justin Jefferson gave his pitch to Myles Garrett at Radio Row, but it just got released to the media not too long ago. Myles, this is quote unquote from Justin Jefferson. Myles, you know where to go, brother. We need about 1-2 extra pieces, and you'll fill in that piece. We need you. I mean, we don't need him, but I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want Myles Garrett on the Vikings. That would be unbelievable. And to all the people out there on Twitter and Instagram and say all this about how wouldn't be a good fit. We already got edge rushers, blah, this, that. If you have a chance to get Myles Garrett and Myles Garrett wants to play for your team, you take him. He's one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in the entire NFL. Why would you not want him? He is an absolute force in both the run and pass game. I mean, if you haven't seen this dude looks like he's got the SpongeBob arms when SpongeBob inflates him with the balloon. That's what Myles Garrett looks like. His arms are freaking huge. Not trying to glaze him, but he's an unbelievable football player, and the Minnesota Vikings would be lucky to have him. And I don't think it's going to happen because it's just not a position of need. But for all the people out there saying, Vikings don't need him, blah, 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 we would love to have him. We would love to have him. And there really wasn't a lot of news and notes. A lot of stuff is going to unfold. The transition tag, franchise tag window just opened up from now for the next 2 weeks. So that's probably when we'll get word on Sam Darnold, because most likely an extension's not happening. It would most likely be a franchise tag if he were to come back to Minnesota. So we'll maybe figure something about Sam Darnold in that timeline in the next 14 days. And then March 10th, free agency starts, and, all hell is going to break loose then. But, combine coming up. But otherwise, these last 1 to 2 weeks, there hasn't been too much earth-shattering news from the NFL as people just wait for free agency, the draft, the combine, all those to get underway. The last thing I had for news and notes here was Justin Jefferson's Instagram post from the Super Bowl. He was just posted up with Martha Stewart. I think that's just a fantastic picture. Two legends, one of the greatest cooks of all time, and then Martha Stewart. So what can you say? I mean, two legends of the game, of their respective games, and I loved it. I mean, I love that photo. Great job. Let's take a side-eye look around a different league since there is no football. We'll continue our side-eye look around the league, when free agency starts, when the draft starts, see what other teams are up to. We'll get to it then. But I'm going to look at the Four Nations hockey. So I guess I'm looking at the NHL, but I'm looking at the Four Nations Cup. I don't know what they call it. I don't really pay much attention to hockey besides the Minnesota Wild. Even then, I don't really watch the games. I pay attention to the standings and who's doing well, kind of, sort of. But I really only pay attention to the Wild. So I'm not really a big hockey guy, to say the least. But USA beat Canada 3-1. 3 fights within the first 9 seconds. That might be a record for most fights within a period of time in anything. I mean, that's a fight every 3 seconds is pretty crazy. And somehow I was just at All-Star Weekend in San Francisco. Side note on San Francisco, the amount of homeless people there is unbelievable. I mean, the amount of things and people I saw on those streets past like 11 o'clock, and we're talking about 11 o'clock on a Friday. We're not talking about 3, 4 in the morning. We're talking about 11 o'clock on a Friday when you think downtown would be jumping and a lot of people. It was only homeless people. It is insane. Something needs to happen with that homeless population out in San Francisco. It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city, great views, the hills, the houses, the buildings, everything is awesome about that city. It's just the homeless people are bad. Anyway, getting back on track here. All-Star Weekend for the NBA. It was very disappointing, to say the least. Mac McClung saved the dunk contest, but the All-Star game was terrible. I think 33 minutes of the broadcast was actual basketball, and over 2 hours and 20 minutes of it was just talking and commercials, which is absolutely insane. It was unwatchable. It was unwatchable. And Joe and Nolan were at the game. My two buddies were at the game. They said the same thing. Unwatchable. Anyway, getting back, the NHL solved that problem. They did the Four Nations Cup. I like it. Why isn't some countries in it? Like, I feel like there would be a lot of people from Russia who play hockey. I feel like there could be a multiple amount of teams from the NHL. Maybe it's because the Olympics, they got banned, whatever it is. I don't know. But great game. They solved it. It's intense. People care about it. People are watching it. People are talking about it. And the NHL All-Star weekend is on top right now. They figured it out. And I just want to give props to them. Props to the NHL for getting people to care about hockey. Probably one of the hardest things to do in America, because basketball and football just comes easy. But USA plays Canada on Thursday or tomorrow, and I might have to tune in, honestly. I might have to tune in, but I think Canada is going to win. I couldn't tell you more than 2 players on either team, but I think Canada's going to win because I think USA won the first one, and I don't think Canada's going to let it happen twice. So we'll see. It's in the U.S. I believe it's in Boston. We'll see what happens. All right. Let's get into my complete off-season plan for the Minnesota Vikings. This is just what I think the Minnesota Vikings should do. I try to do it in order. For the most part, it is in order, but it might be a little bit out. We'll see. First things first. What happens with Kwesi? We're not going to let him go into a lame duck season. We need to extend him, because as soon as you let a GM go into a lame duck season, he's going to do anything in his power to only look at next season. He's not going to look at years future, because he's just playing for his job right now. So that determines what he does as a GM. So we need that contract to get settled, and Kwesi needs to know how long he's going to be in Minnesota, or how long he's signed to be in Minnesota, before he gets to making all these decisions. That's just from his sake of job security. And although that might not be in the team's best interest of like what Kwesi is doing best for his job, but usually it is, because team success is coherent with Kwesi's job security. But we'll see what happens. Something needs to be figured out with Kwesi, though. We can't let him go into this lame duck season. Next up, you need to get a decision from Harrison Smith soon. Maybe before the combine, so you can spend a little bit more time on safeties if you need to consider drafting one of those. March 14th is when his guaranteed goes on the 2025 books. So we got about a month until his guaranteed money goes on to the 2025 books. Now, I think it's either retirement or he's coming back to the Vikings. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else. I don't think he wants to play one season anywhere else. It's retirement, Vikings. Now, this is what I think happens if he retires. If he retires, you tag Cam Bynum. Taking Cam Bynum, yes, you're going to pay him a little bit more than what his projected value is, but you're not committing to him long term. Similar to what the Vikings did with Anthony Harris a while ago. If you can remember that, Anthony Harris coming off a great season, arguably a better season than the one that Cam Bynum had this past season, and they franchise tagged him. And when they franchise tagged him, Anthony Harris did not play that good. And there, the Vikings avoided an extension. They let Anthony Harris go. They weren't committed to his contract long term. That's what I think the Vikings should do with Cam Bynum. More of an unproven player, coming off his rookie deal. Give him one more year, see what he can do. If he drastically improves, then you can extend him. If he doesn't, you can move on from him, find a replacement, a year after Harrison Smith is now retired. If Harry doesn't retire, obviously bring him back, sign him to a one-year deal, and I think you might have to let Cam Bynum walk, depending on what his options are in free agency. Maybe you can match a deal another team gives him, but again, I don't know about committing to Cam Bynum long-term. That's just my opinion. I don't know if it's worth it. Next up, let Sam Darnold walk, sign Daniel Jones for backup purposes. Daniel Jones has already been in the system and we're going to get into this a little bit more with stay or go, but Daniel Jones has already been in the system for the Minnesota Vikings. He already knows the guys on the team. He already knows the coaches. So why not just re-sign him, backup? He was a starter. He's got NFL experience under his belt. Why not just sign him instead of anyone else? Am I going to be disappointed if the Vikings don't re-sign Sam or Daniel Jones? Not at all. Sam Darnold's walking, though. That's what we're getting at here. I believe you should re-sign Aaron Jones to a one-year deal. Leadership is a big factor. I think if you lose some of these key locker room guys to free agency or retirement, bringing back Aaron Jones would be key. He loves it here. He loves Minnesota. He loves the team. He loves the guys. I think bringing him back would be a smart move. 1 year, though. Don't know how much more he's got left in the tank. I want to extend Josh Metellus and Josh Oliver. 2 Joshes. I'm not joshing around about 2 Joshes being extended. I think that should happen. 2 key pieces that can open up about $10 million in cap space with their extensions. Josh Oliver, great blocking tight end. You might not get the most done in the passing game, but he's capable of it. And I believe he's a big part of this offense. And I believe he'd be a big part of the offense if they wanted to continue to improve the run game. So I believe Josh Oliver should come back. Josh Metellus, he's the heart of this locker room, and he's a great player on top of it. Easily extend him. I think it's an easy decision. He's an up-and-coming star, and he continues to get better. So I think extending him would be huge. And then, not to mention, you save about $10 million in cap space with those extensions about how they're worked out. I think the Vikings roll with Mekhi Blackmon, Byron Murphy, and they either draft or pick up a corner in free agency. Obviously, you got McLaurin, take him. But I believe Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, most likely not returning to this team. You got to sign interior offensive linemen, proven guys, since you can't develop them. It's been a while since the Vikings have had a stellar offensive line. And although they haven't used a lot of draft capital on them, they haven't been able to develop them into the league's best. So why not just sign some guys that you can hopefully somewhat develop, but that already have a decent amount of skill, and do it that way. Sign a punter. Ryan Wright has been below average the last couple of years, and the Vikings need to improve in special teams. They were 30th in DVOA in 2022 and 2023, and they were 27th last season in special teams DVOA. They need to get better at special teams. It's a third of the game. See, I want to do the math on that, though. Technically, it's a third of the game, offense, defense, special teams, but it's really not, because special teams is not out there for the same amount of time as offense, defense is. I don't know. Something to think about. Filling in spots in free agency before the NFL draft takes place in a year in which you have no draft capital will be very important. You want to go into the NFL draft not needing a lot of spots to be filled. You only want a certain amount of snaps that you need to fill going into the draft. Like I said, especially when you don't have a lot of draft capital. So filling the spots in free agency are going to be key when you have $65 million in cap space to do it too. And that's why you can't commit $40 million to Sam Darnold. And I believe in a year in which you don't have a lot of draft capital, you should trade down in the NFL draft, running back and defensive line, 2 positions of need for this Minnesota Vikings team are the most loaded in this draft. Why not trade down, get picks in the second, get picks in the third, that picks you don't have right now, and draft and fill the holes that you need with guys who could have first round talent. I believe there's running back and defensive line talent that will fall into the second and third rounds just because of how deep those positions are. I don't know about third, maybe second, but I believe there's going to be running backs and defensive linemen in the second that are great picks. and the Vikings are able to pick up 2 of them because they moved out of the first, that would be huge. That would be huge. And I think drafting a defensive player with your first pick is a no-brainer. I don't think you can go running back. I don't think you can go interior offensive line. I think you have to go D-line, corner, maybe safety. But I think D-line and corner are the biggest needs of this team, especially youth-wise. And I think solidifying one of those positions in this year's draft would be huge. That's my offseason plan. If the offseason goes like that, which I'm expecting it to, not all of it, obviously, but I'm expecting the general, what word am I looking for? The general, I don't know. It's going to be similar to that. The general idea of the offseason is going to be similar to that. Maybe that's what I was looking for. All right. Let's get into stay or go. This is a segment in which I go over a Vikings free agent and discuss whether I think they should stay or whether they should go. Next up, Daniel Jones. Now, obviously, this is all based on Darnold. If Darnold comes back, you're not bringing him back. You're not bringing Daniel Jones back. There's absolutely no point. I don't think Daniel Jones is in line for a starting job anywhere else in the league. There has been reports of the Steelers, but what are we actually doing, Pittsburgh? Like, just signing 1-year rentals every single year. I know that's your thing because you can't develop them, but it just seems so like it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And signing Daniel Jones just wouldn't work in Pittsburgh. It just wouldn't. And if I'm Daniel Jones, why would I not want to stay in Minnesota to develop? I already know KOC. I know what my position is going to be here. If I come back, I'm going to be the backup to JJ McCarthy. I already know, I know the offense, blah, 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 blah. Like, why would I not do that? Look at Sam Darnold. There is uncertainty about a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy. So you might have the opportunity to play. So if you don't have a starting position available for you in the NFL, why would you not stick with the Vikings, arguably the best coaching staff for a quarterback in the league? And ahead of you is a rookie quarterback, quote unquote rookie, coming off a significant injury in which you might have some time to play. So I think, I think the reasons for him not to stay would just be you can sign someone cheaper and he obviously goes somewhere else in free agency because he has another option. But I think Daniel Jones should return. I think he should stay. I think you make that move, or he makes that move during the season when he left the Giants with intention of he wanted to go to Minnesota and Minnesota wanted him just to see kind of what would happen. But I think he should stay. I think he could develop here in Minnesota and we'll see what happens. All right. Let's get into my draft highlight here. I honestly chose this one before Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft came out. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, he does a lot of mock drafts. It's one of the most coveted mock drafts, I would say, that people drop. But he had the Vikings selecting Ohio State running back TreVeyon Henderson at pick number 24. His reasoning was basically the Vikings have seen what an explosive running back can do, and he highlighted Jahmyr Gibbs and said that the Vikings need one of their own. And they're getting one of their own with a pick of TreVeyon Henderson at pick number 24. Now, do I think TreVeyon Henderson is on the level of a Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson? No, I don't think so. Is he a tier below that? Yeah, which makes him a very good prospect, a very good running back. I mean, he's explosive. Breakaway speed. He can do it in both the run and the pass. Obviously the run, but he can do it in the pass too. And not only is it explosiveness, but it's vision, feel. It feels like he's just got it all. He's just an all-around great back that played a huge role in Ohio State's offense. He had 144 carries and 1,016 yards, 7.1 yard average, and 10 touchdowns. Not to mention he had 284 yards and 27 receptions and a tud through the air. Now, those stats might be underwhelming compared to some of the other running backs out there. But you have to remember he was splitting time, carries, receptions, all of it with Judkins, another very, very good running back that is going to probably go within the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. So he's not a Gibbs. He's not a Bijan or not even an Ashton Genty prospect, but he would be a great fit for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, do I want to draft him in the first round? No. I don't like spending a first round pick on a running back when you have one, other holes to fill, two, you're not immediately ready for a Super Bowl. And I highlight the Eagles as in the Eagles were ready to win a Super Bowl, and Saquon Barkley was their last chess piece that they added. I don't think adding a running back would be the Vikings' last chess piece that they need in order to win a Super Bowl. And although the Vikings need to improve in the run game, they need it. I do not think running back was the problem last season. I think it was more the scheme, the play calling, the creativity of the offensive play calling. And I believe Aaron Jones wasn't the issue. I think it was just more of an interior offensive line thing than anything. So would I be utterly pissed if the Vikings drafted a running back in the first round? Yeah, probably. I'd probably do a rant online. I'd probably, lash out. But I'd be excited for whoever comes here because they're going to play for my favorite football team, and that's that. But at the same time, it would be rough if the Vikings drafted a running back in the first round. All right, let's talk about another free agent. Let's talk about a guy that gets me excited. That gets me ecstatic about him joining the Minnesota Vikings, about him beefing up this interior offensive line. Beefing. And when I say beefing, I'm saying beefing up. We're talking about former offensive tackle and now turned guard for the Philadelphia Eagles, Mekhi Becton. And when I'm saying beef, we're talking beef. Let me look up his height. He's 6'7". 6'7". We're talking about LeBron James at an offensive guard. Talk about LeBron James plus 115 pounds. That's how big Mekhi Becton is. Obviously, he's got the frame to be a tackle. Can that help him? Obviously. If he's going to come over here to play guard, left or right, could you imagine having Christian Darrisaw, Mekhi Becton on the same side of the offensive line? I mean, those are two ginormous dudes. Christian Darrisaw not nearly as big as Becton, but man, that would be a sight to see. And now I think Becton would be, I don't think, he would be a cheaper option than Trey Smith, Will Fries. Is he a more risky option? Yes. But he also has the flexibility to play tackle. He played one season at guard with the Eagles, and he proved that he can be a good guard. However, did he prove that he can be a good part in a polished offensive line? Yes, but can he be a piece that uplifts this offensive line to the next level in a middle of the road upper echelon offensive line like the Vikings? Like the Vikings is like upper middle of offensive lines right now. Like tackles, studs, center, whatever, guards bad. So can he add to that Vikings offensive line is what I'm wondering. But I think there are probably more technically advanced guards better at the position, like guys who can pull better, guys who know the game better, guys who just, can just move a little bit better than Mekhi Becton can. But obviously what he lacks in speed and agility, he makes up with his massive size. So I think there is a lot of pluses that would be happening if the Vikings sign Mekhi Beckman. I mean, my God, I get his name right. Mekhi Becton. Becton. The Jets ruined him. Mekhi Becton, and now he's in Philadelphia. If the Vikings sign him, adding a lot of mass, I feel like would help in the red zone too. Just like I said, if you put Darrisaw and him on the same side, O'Neal and him on the same side, that would add a lot of beef to that offensive line. especially when you get inside the 20, because the Vikings can't run the ball inside the 20 as they proved last year. But I think it would be a great addition to this team. And I think the Vikings really should consider signing Mekhi Becton. I don't know if he'd be like the top guard you want to sign. Maybe the second offensive guard that you sign. That would be a good signing. All right. I think at the end of right before free agency starts, so March 10th, I'm gonna make an Instagram post of all the guys I've highlighted, like just like a reel or just like a carousel of like the guys I highlighted over the season. Then you guys can go back and watch those videos online, and we'll just see how close I get to who the Vikings sign and possible options. So I'll do the same thing with draft too. When the draft comes around, we'll highlight all the guys that I've highlighted, and see what the Vikings end up and see how close I was. Right now, I want you to think of the most random Viking you can think of. Name the most random Vikings player you can think of. I'm going to go with, I feel like I always guess the same guys. Let's go with someone different today. I'm going to go Greg Jennings. Why not? Short stint. They love guys. Chat CPT loves people with short stints on the Vikings. Let's go with Greg Jennings. Oh my God. How about Toby Gerhart? I so could have gotten that. I don't know if I've ever guessed that, though. He was a running back for the Minnesota Vikings from 2010 to 2013. While he wasn't a superstar, he certainly made an impression as a backup to Adrian Peterson, and his name often pops up when people think of random Vikings players. It's very true. Toby Gerhart, very random. He got robbed of a Heisman one year, fun fact. And I feel like he was a very underrated NFL player. I believe he's doing like real estate now, or he's some part of a business firm, or he's got like a 9-to-5 now. Pretty crazy that you can just go from being in the NFL running back to being like showing up at a job with just everybody else. Pretty crazy. I appreciate you guys. I feel like we accomplished a lot of stuff on today's episode. A lot of off-season talk, which I like because my hopes are still high, and I still feel like we can sign everybody and anyone to the Vikings and just go at this Super Bowl for next season. But appreciate you guys. Back with a new episode next Wednesday. Big stuff coming this offseason. Have a good one.